Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Michelle?
Fine. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. We worked together on the AIAU about getting your work published, the digital edition, and I'm lucky enough to have you on my podcast now. So
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be on it.
thanks. Paul Petrunia is the founder and director of Archinect, a mostly online publication resource founded in 1997 to establish a more connected community of architects, students, designers, and fans of the design environment. Outside of managing his growing team of writers, editors, designers, and technology specialists, Paul co-hosts Archinect Sessions, a weekly podcast featuring discussions of current architecture news and exclusive interviews with architecture leaders. Paul is also the founder and director of Bustler, the web's primary resource for architecture competition, events, and related news stories. Paul studied architecture at the University of Oregon and the Southern California Institute of Architecture. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife. In his spare time, he enjoys skiing, scuba diving, mountain biking, and playing tennis. He's much more physically active than I am. So,
Well, yeah, due to injuries, I've been kind of lazy lately, but in better days.
And you also interviewed me post-COVID, or not post-COVID, during COVID, about how things were going during COVID. And how has your work been affected during COVID? Now coming back out of it.
Well, I mean, I think that our situation was quite similar to a lot of people's situation in the beginning, in particular, business owners, in that everything kind of, came to a complete stop. It was super stressful. No one really knew what was going to happen. So it was really slow for, our business relies very heavily on the job market, and people were not hiring. People were, a lot of people were looking into other industries, picking up side hustles. So it was hit pretty hard for the first few months. We went from being we've always been an in-house team. Everybody that works for us, except for, some contractors and some of our programmers, work outside the office, but we've always worked inside the office. Once COVID hit, everyone started working from home, mostly reluctantly, because I think a lot of people really enjoyed working together.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody got used to it, and then our team, as business started picking up again, a few months into COVID, when everybody started recognizing that this might be the new normal, and we gotta start getting back to life as usual,
Mm-hmm.
whatever usual is. Things started picking up. Business has been great, actually, for the last year or so. And in the meantime, we've hired a number of people that are outside of California, where we're located. So we've kind of become a mostly remote workforce now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a very transformational time. But as I think a lot of people have experienced, transformation can be a really good thing. Sometimes it's important to mix things up and try things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you said that you use Slack. A lot of times you were using Slack to talk to people in the office when you had the bigger office anyway, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that experience of transitioning to true, remote work made a lot of us realize that we were still communicating and collaborating with each other in the same way, even though we were in-house, because we're a digital company, mostly a lot of writers and editors on our team in-house. And so a lot of people were just communicating through Slack, even if we were, just very close to each other in the office. So in that way, things have not changed.
Mm-hmm. And then you started it in 1997, but you had kind of said before about how maybe that might have been, maybe you started it too early.
Yeah, I mentioned that during the, what was that in reference to? The reason I brought that up in our panel that we did for the AIA CRAN was that one of the original goals with Archinect when I started in 1997 was to provide a platform for people to put up their resumes and create profiles, for firms to have an identity, because very few firms had a website in 1997, and those that did were pretty bad. So I wanted to kind of start creating a directory, and but it was too early. People either thought, like, we don't need to do that, or it was too much to wrap their head around to create a profile, never mind just getting on the internet. A lot of people in 1997 didn't even know how to get onto the internet, without a AOL CD-ROM. So it was.
I know. And I don't think that I had my own email address, like, I think it was past 2000, unfortunately, right? Because I was like just doing, I was like in the thick of, I'd given birth to my third kid, which, which kind of put a, into like,
yeah, email
yeah,
was on top of that.
yeah. But we had moved to San Diego from LA, and so I was just trying to like build up my practice again. I had lived down here when I was younger, but not like, we had lived in Venice Beach for 10 years, and then moving to La Mesa from Venice Beach. People were like, oh my God, like, is it totally different? I'm like, well, yeah, in some ways it's good because we were able to buy a house, but then of course, in some ways it was like totally, it was totally different, like really. And so I really, I just really missed the creativity, in LA, and, I missed our friends in LA, and then, you have to get readjusted for this, and then get those referrals back up and stuff. And, without the internet, the internet makes it so much easier now to be able to, to get that through social media, but, there wasn't any.
Yeah, I lived in Venice Beach from 97 to 2002. I don't know, maybe did we overlap?
By 2 years, yes, from 1989 to 1999. So we were on Riviera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was on Rose, right down by the beach.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were neighbors.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the Rose, when the binoculars were first, and then Abbott's Habit. Did you go to Abbott's Habit?
Oh, I loved Abbott's Habit.
Yeah.
I
know. And then we went back there, and Abbott's Habit was closed, but luckily Abbott's Pizza was still there. And then the guy that was at Abbott's Pizza, I was like talking to him, not the owner. So it wasn't Noah. They had sold it to somebody else or something. They were just kind of, he said that when we were in Venice Beach was like the best time to be in Venice.
It was, yeah. Our first office was on Abercrombie. And I remember this was a different company. We had a design, multidisciplinary design agency. We did architecture, we did furniture design for Cindy Crawford. We did motion graphics for Discovery Channel, Travel Channel. But we used to go to the Brig, after work almost every day. And so we saw the Brig transform from this gritty dive bar to this like ridiculously swanky, or trying to be swanky, nightclub. And I feel like that was really kind of when Abercrombie jumped the shark. It's a fun place still, but it's not what it used to be.
Well, I had asked the owner of our place, I said, where do you go for coffee now that they don't have Abbott's Habit anymore? And she said, oh, we go to Tom's. And I'm like, the shoe place? And she's like, oh yeah, there's that little coffee place inside, So it's like I took my sons, who, it was like a few years ago, so they were a little bit, but it's just not the same. It's not the same as it, you're sitting there on this AstroTurf rug that's like kind of inside of the Tom's store, and I'm like, this isn't a coffee place. Like, this is a Tom's store in, with coffee or something.
There's probably an espresso bar in every store along Abercrombie.
Yeah.
That's Abercrombie.
My studio was at 314 Westminster. So it was like right
Oh,
across
wow.
from the, yeah.
My very first apartment when I first moved to LA was on Westminster. Uh, just maybe about 4 blocks west of Lincoln. It was a duplex.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know, that's funny. I mean, I said, oh, yeah, Perry Farrell had his studio like on Abbot Kinney at the end of Westminster. And they said, oh, did you ever see it? I said, oh, the whole building was blacked out. Like you didn't know you never saw anybody. And obviously, I guess I wasn't at the studio ever late enough to actually see him go in or out or something. But
I
yeah, I
think he
never,
still lives. I think he still lives in Venice.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, there were people like we used to see like these art, we used to see like actors that would live down there, and they would just kind of just be like walking around and
Oh, all the time. I remember when I was brand new to LA, I was only maybe a couple months into my studies at SciArc. I was at Tortilla Grill, right across from Abbott's Habit, and I was waiting in line, and John Cusack was in front of me in line,
yes, he
and
used to be there. He used to be around there all the time.
and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
and the funny thing was is I knew I recognized him. Of course, I knew who John Cusack was, especially in the '90s. But for some reason, I just thought that he was a fellow student at SciArc. So I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? And, we were just chatting for a while, kind of, that kind of awkward chat where you should know the person, but you don't really know them that well. And then it didn't kick in later until I was eating my lunch that it wasn't actually a fellow student. It was John Cusack.
That's funny. That's funny. That was probably probably a big thank you to him because he was like, maybe he thought after a while, like, gosh, he does think that I'm just an ordinary person. Like,
Yeah, or maybe he was trying to rack his brain, thought I was like a gaffer on a project that he worked on or something.
oh my gosh. Ah, okay, so what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
So architecture became really important to me at a pretty young age. I grew up in Canada, and so when I was really young, my very first kind of architectural, I don't know what the word is, epiphany. I was quite young, and I was actually very involved in ballet dancing.
Uh-huh.
I was actually quite good when I danced. I was a ballet dancer until I was 12. At that age, I couldn't handle my friends bugging me about it all the time. So I decided to switch to tennis. But so at the time when I was studying ballet,
Oh, I actually, people made fun of me in ballet believe it or not, they were like, well, why aren't you on the track team? I'm like, because I don't like to run, I mean, like, why would I don't want to do that. Yeah.
And little did everyone know that ballet was so helpful to every other activity. So anyways, I was studying ballet and we were living in this small city in Alberta, about an hour south of Calgary at the time, called Lethbridge. And the city was called, and my ballet took place at the University of Lethbridge. Lethbridge is pretty like nondescript kind of place. Has a very kind of Montana kind of vibe to it. Lethbridge is only maybe a half an hour north of Montana, but a lot of prairies, these rolling hills that they call coulees there. But the university building was this incredibly beautiful brutalist building designed by Arthur Erickson, who was like Canadian, master modernist, who, you can't go to Vancouver without experiencing Arthur Erickson. But that building was just nothing but raw concrete, glass, and all of the floors were carpeted in like hog hair tiles. And it was just, I just absolutely loved it. And I would always, I would have my lessons like usually in the evening. So it was a little quieter. There weren't as many students around. And it was just such an incredible experience. It had super long hallways and these big stairwells going down to the lower levels where the ballet studios were.
Mm-hmm.
And just the experience of walking down these long hallways and I don't know, that building was incredibly influential for me. And I think that was the building that gave me a lifelong obsession with brutalism.
Mm-hmm.
Another building or another experience from when I was a kid was my mom was an interior designer. So
okay.
when I was really little, I would just tag along with her to projects. And, you know, while the architecture was really never anything that exciting, just looking at how she worked with space and transformed these spaces really piqued my interest. Mm-hmm. So that was really influential for me. And then another thing, I guess, I mean, I'm really going back to my earliest memories of architecture. The other one was just the TV show, The Jetsons. I loved The Jetsons as a kid, and the architecture in The Jetsons just got me so excited. You know, it was completely like ignorant of gravity. You know, like it was very, you know, Zaha Hadid before Zaha Hadid was on the scene. So yeah, those are my three first recollections.
Yeah. I had another person that brought up the Jetsons too as part of their, and they do hospitality now.
Oh, okay.
They're an architect and they do hospitality, but yeah. I loved the Jetsons, you know, and I thought, like, okay, that's gonna be, and what was the year that was supposed to be? Wasn't it supposed to be like 10 years ago or something like that?
Oh, really? I don't know. I mean, it just seemed like it was so far in the future, but yeah, I mean, it was probably like supposed to be year 2000 or something when everybody, you know, expected jetpacks and flying cars to hit the scene.
Yeah. Oh, so what are three classic buildings that you like and why?
Well, I'm gonna have to repeat the University of Lethbridge in Lethbridge, Alberta by Arthur Erickson. That one is just so personally important to me. So I can't not mention that one. One here in Los Angeles that I've always been very drawn to, both formally and experientially, is the Bonaventure Hotel in downtown LA by John Portman. John Portman was an interesting architect where, you know, I would never think of him as an architect that I really love based on, you know, how I would describe his projects, but there was the way he executed his projects really connects with me. But the Bonaventure in particular, you know, I think part of the reason maybe why I love the Bonaventure so much is that it reminds me so much of like classic films that I've loved. You know, there's elements of The Shining in it. There's elements of Blade Runner. You know, there's this there's kind of like 2001 Space Odyssey kind of references with, you know, the pods with like exercise equipment that are just hanging over the atrium. And you know, while it's I mean, I guess I don't think I've ever heard anybody refer to it as brutalist, but there are elements of it that are definitely brutalist. From the inside, you would think it's brutalist building. Outside wall, it's all glass. And then
solid forms.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I love the exterior and the interior, but the interior is really what does it for me. I love that building. And then third one I would have to say would be going back to brutalism is the Barbican in London. Whenever I'm in London, I need to get some work done, I always go to the Barbican. You know, it's such a great example of brutalism, but it's also such an interesting kind of experiment of, you know, this city within a city that was developed around, not, I mean, I guess all these buildings are kind of late 60s to mid 70s. So I guess that era does something for me in terms of architecture. But yeah, I would say the Barbican is not really a building necessarily, but it's a great big development. But yeah, I would say that that's my third.
I thought that you were an Angelino.
Well, I mean, at this point, I've got a lot of.
Yeah, now you are, but yeah.
I've got a lot of. I've got a little bit of an identity crisis, I think, because when I'm in Los Angeles, I feel very Canadian. But when I'm in Canada, I mean, I've been down here, I've been in LA for so long. I've lived in LA for longer than I've lived anywhere else in my life. When I'm in Canada, I don't feel like a local anymore, and I feel like an Angelino. So it's yeah, it's a little bit of an identity crisis. I guess I remember when I was first at SciArc, this really drunk guy came up to me on the street one day and started asking me where I was from, and he told me, you know, you always end up going back to where you're from, and that kind of always stuck with me. So who knows? Who knows? The way this country's going, I'm glad that I still have some citizenship in Canada.
Yeah, that's true. I know people will say like, oh, when are you going to come? I grew up in Pittsburgh, but I left when I was 17. But people will say like, oh, when are you going to come home? And I'm like, come home? Like, that's not, like, I haven't. That was like 40 years ago. Like,
and that's
I've
a
only
hard.
been back 3 times since then. So it's like, I mean, you know, because my parents actually moved out here before I did. My mom and my stepdad moved out here, and then I just went back to finish my senior year of high school, and then I came back out here to join them. So, you know, it's like I just feel like, oh, I mean, we really don't have that much family left there. I mean, nobody's left there. So it's funny, you know, just when people say, oh, home, right? Home to them is right. Home, you know, if you like leave home, because there aren't that many people that leave Pittsburgh. So that's one of the things right there. I mean, I don't know if you're like from an area where nobody ever leaves, and then they're thinking like, oh, you know, you're out in California, and you know, when are you going to come? No, I am home. I'm home. I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's and it's a hard sell to get someone to come to leave Southern California, because Southern California, you know, it's got a lot of advantages. But I grew up mostly in Victoria, British Columbia. So that's a beautiful place that I dream about on every, you know, 100-degree day that I'm dying here in LA. You know, it's like the dry, I dream about spending time there, but I don't know if I could make the move.
Yeah. No, yeah. I was up in LA last weekend and the weather was beautiful.
It was, yeah. This is the time of the year where it's very pleasant. Yeah, we're gonna be hitting the heat wave soon, so it's gonna be kind of miserable for me at least. I'm not a big fan of the heat, but it'll be hot until October.
So what do you like about being an architect, or what do you regret about not becoming an architect?
Yeah, so I started working right out of school, right out of architecture school. You know, when I was 12 years old, I clearly remember telling my parents when we were living in Victoria, BC, that when I am a grown-up, I am going to be an architect with my own firm in Los Angeles. And I almost got there. I'm in Los Angeles with my own company, and have been ever since school. But the architect part is I'm not a practicing architect. I've never taken on any architectural projects. So I started Archinect while I was an architecture student. And, you know, architecture school was an interesting time because in some ways it got me more excited about architecture. In other ways, it kind of opened my eyes to architecture not being everything I was hoping it would be. You know, like there's a lot of, it's not, you know, I think a lot of people romanticize the profession as this job where you just sit down, you design these buildings, and they just get built, and you know, it's much more complicated than that, of course.
Got your cape.
Yeah, the big drafting desk and a team of apprentices. So you know, there have been many times where I've regretted not, I mean, for example, right now, we've been looking to buy a bigger house, and you know, every house we look at is needs a lot of work, or at least, you know, we'd want to do a lot of work to personalize it. You know, and I don't have the experience. I mean, I know what I want. And I've always loved the idea of designing a house to live in. I guess that's still a possibility, but
it totally is.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know enough people that have firms that have designed a ton of stuff, and they really don't know what they're doing. But I mean, it is and I mean, I think that it's good that you still have the school experience, right? That's kind of like a fond image in your mind, you know, where like those of us that have been out, you know, it's like kind of, you know, like one of our friends in the Architect group, you know, she was saying like, gosh, I mean, she graduated from SciArc also, and she's like, oh, I really liked like what I did, you know, what we were doing in school, and I was like, yeah, I really liked what I was doing in school also, you know. It's like, and it kind of brought me back to like, gosh, I really want to do more of that, you know, because I think I was happier doing more of that. Not that I don't have clients but you know, I mean, it's also working with the client. It's about what they want. I mean, in custom residential, it's about what your client wants, you know, and you know, it's not about what Michelle wants all the time. I mean, there are, you know, maybe there are those clients that are going to come to you because they've seen like some project of yours and they're like, yeah, we just want you to do whatever you want to do. But, you know, most of the time it's not like that, unless you do design build, you know. But I mean, even my own house isn't what, you know, I mean, we bought this house because, you know, it was the price was right. And then it also had like kind of no redeeming characteristics besides the fact that it had oak floors and wood windows, and people had not taken all the wood windows out, right? There were still the double hung windows and the oak floors, and just a couple areas that like didn't have the oak floors in them. But you know, I added, you know, and it was like, okay, if we wanted to just totally scrape this and like, you know, do it over, right? If we had like this cute little bungalow, we wouldn't want to tear it apart, you know. But you know, this thing that was kind of built in the 50s, you know, it's like, who cares, right? But you know, I mean, we didn't do that, right? Because we still had to live in the house. It was supposed to be the 5-year house, and then it turned into like the 20-year house now. And we did add on in the back, but it's kind of not what I would have done ideally. It was like for a certain situation, you know, the health situation, and you know, now I'm going to build an ADU in the back also. So it's just, you know, but yeah, you could totally do it. Just right?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do that. I guess there's not that much I regret. I do love working in the architecture industry. I mean, yeah, I would say that I have very little regrets for following the path that I took, because it allows me to stay very much connected with architects and with the industry and with current trends, and probably more so than if I was practicing architecture, because it's my job to to make sure to stay on top of that, rather than just kind of focusing on my own projects. So yeah, so I really like the kind of position that I'm in terms of staying connected to the community and the industry.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that you're very helpful for, you know, to the community. You know, it's like you're much more helpful in the position that you're in right now than if you were a practicing architect.
I hope so. I
Yeah, I
still get
think
people asking me about their kitchen renovation. I don't have much to give them.
yeah, yeah. So I had to add on 500 square feet, but really all I ever wanted was a kitchen remodel. But now the kitchen is still a mess. Of course, I get these things. I don't know whether you do this either. Maybe it's just crazy me, but where I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna, I'm so sick of this tile, I'm just gonna like tear it all down, right? But then then it takes me 2 years to actually build it again.
Yeah.
So and then so I ripped the flooring out in the kitchen, but and ripped out part of the wall above the above the sink, and I haven't done anything about that. So
Yeah, it's sounds like probably every architect's house, like a working laboratory.
exactly, it's never
Yeah,
finished. It's never
yeah.
finished. Yeah. Yeah. One time when we first went to look at houses, we had this family friend that like took us around, and they took us to this one house, and it was like newer, and it was in a pretty good area of La Mesa or whatever. We went in and I walked, but it's like everything in it was like from Home Depot, but but it was finished, right? There was nothing that needed to be redone or anything. It was just all, and like we looked around and we walked out, and I said I said to the realtor, it was a friend of my parents, I said, I don't want you to show any other homes like that.
Yeah.
I said, we want something that we can like do with, that has like some type of character. I said, but yeah, I don't want anything like, even if like half of it's falling apart, I'd rather live in that house than like a house like this. So yeah.
I know, I feel like I think the same thing every time I look at a house on the market. The first thing I think is like, it's such a shame that somebody put this time and energy into doing this. It's like, I would much rather have everything falling apart and just, ready to be done but I don't know. I mean, I guess there's people out there that would rather have something finished and not so nice than have to take on the work of doing it all.
Yeah, somebody that has baseboards. I always say, like, yeah, no architect's house ever has baseboards on it, because there's actually it's like baseboards or anything was like finished work. Well, we were gonna do this, but then I decided that maybe I would want to do this. And then when we realized that we couldn't do that, and then it was more expensive than I thought it was gonna be, so we did nothing at all.
I think gutters can go in that same category as baseboard. Every time, every time we have a contractor over at the house, they're always like, "How come you don't have gutters?" It's like, it's an aesthetic decision. We live in LA too. It's like I can handle the puddling every once in a while. It makes up for the ugly gutters.
I know. And I'm gonna do rain chains when I do get gutters on the dish. And then there's like some part of this house has gutters on it, some part it doesn't,
Mm.
and I'm like, what's going on? And then, but there's this downspout in the front, and I told my kids, I'm like, we're getting rid of that. I'm ripping that out, and I'm gonna put the rain shade in, and I don't care if that just the water just comes down and then just like goes everywhere. I said, but I'm tired of that downspout. Um, so what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
Well, I think we're at a time in history where we are primed to make some good changes. I feel like I'm hoping that the energy that was communicated in the beginning of COVID about changing the industry and the practice I hope that momentum continues. I'm a little worried that we're going to kind of go back to business as usual, once COVID is kind of more in the rearview mirror. But looking at the way that young recent graduates and students are becoming so proactive
Mhm.
about instigating change, positive
Yeah.
change, so much more than previous generations,
Mhm.
that I'm pretty hopeful that there will be a positive evolution in the way that we practice,
Mhm.
and especially the way that we build. I mean, I think there's never been a time where it's been as obvious as it is right now, that the way we build needs to be more sensitive to the environment, and it needs to be more sensitive to the actual people that use the built environment. The industry needs to get more diverse and representative of our communities.
Mhm.
I'm someone that loves brutalism, but recognizing the environmental problems of building with concrete and other materials, that's going to have to change. I think
Mhm.
there's so many opportunities now. I mean, there's so many new technical advancements that can help create a much more sustainable built environment. And yeah, I'm hopeful that we're going to start seeing that change at a quicker pace
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
next few years.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I think it's possible. I think, right. I mean, people don't, they don't want to, people don't want to change, right? They kind of get comfortable with things, right? It's like they see something a certain way. They grew up with, right? Like people that grew up in Southern California, it's like they've kind of grown up with, with the tract house is like the standard of, it's like, oh, and then you have, these communities, right, with just sprawl and I grew up in an area that was like super dense. It's one of the densest neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. But people, right, they moved away from, kind of, I mean, it's like 5 minutes outside of the city. It's on public transportation, like bus lines, trolley line goes like right through. And and they've had their trolley like the entire time, right? They just converted it to like subways and then put like subways underneath a lot of the areas of the town. But a lot of people moved out of those areas, because it was an older area. It was kind of built at like the late 1800s, early hundreds, and then now a lot of people are coming back to that area and they like can't find it. So the housing prices are going up, but it's kind of interesting that it's like people are more, the younger generation does want to be closer to the city. They don't want to be isolated in these areas, and they're kind of more um, into the environment. I was over at a client's house last night, and they had this car that they were selling that was their nephew's, and I said, "Oh, really? You're going to sell his car? Is he moving?" And then she's like, "No, it's like he really can't afford the insurance on it. He's not a very good driver." So that's one of the reasons why he couldn't, the registration, wasn't, it was mom had to pay the registration for it. And so we just said, you know what, you live downtown and your job is downtown, it's like you maybe you don't even need this car anymore, you know? And so he was like, yeah, sure. Of course, they had to sell it for him. But besides that, I mean, it is that yeah, he's going to go without a car. And I said, well, I said, now they have Lyft and Uber if you need to go anymore. And my architectural photographer gave up his car. He had a space in the parking, in the parking structure, and he hadn't moved his car. And I guess that the HOA said, oh yeah, you're supposed to move your car and you haven't moved it like for like for a year or whatever, you haven't moved it. And he goes, yeah, and they said, well, you know what, you can either like, move it, or you're gonna have to, get rid of it. And then he was like, you know what, I'm gonna get rid of it. And they were like, what? Like, really? So he totally got rid of it, and he takes all of his stuff, he either goes on his bike or, he'll just take a lift with all of his, photographic supplies with him and everything, all the cameras, and just like gets out and photographs the project, and then like gets in and can take a lift home, or right.
Yeah, it seems to be, I mean, my daughter is really close to getting her driver's license. She's almost 16, and I'm seeing a lot of kids these days don't have that same desire to rush to get their license. Like, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I was counting down the days until I could go to the DMV and get my license and become free. But
yeah,
I think freedom means something else to kids these days, rather than
Yeah. And they're more, one of my friends was saying, they're more into living with more people around them. Like they'll easily, I mean, like she has an only child, but her daughter, even though she has, even though she could, she actually has money to be able to buy, a house. And but she still wants roommates, even in the house, which is, it's like I don't think people, I mean, I'm trying to finally like leave and actually have my own place to live. But I don't know whether that's ever going to happen. But I mean, so I live with my roommates that I gave birth to. But it's like I don't know whether that's going to be my ideal situation or whether that's just kind of like what it is. But yeah,
I'm gonna start referring to my kids that way too. Except for I can't say I gave birth to them. I like that.
So how many, your roommates, how many kids do you have?
Just two. I've got a almost 16-year-old girl and an almost 13-year-old boy.
Okay. I saw one on Instagram. I saw the one that he had his birthday, right?
Oh yeah, that might have been the last time I posted on Instagram.
Okay. Because I think it was his 10th birthday, or it might have been his 10th birthday or something.
It was probably, I don't know. I don't know what happened about a couple of years ago, maybe like as we were kind of starting COVID. I didn't even make a conscious decision of it. I just kind of dropped off social media. I mean, I still like, passively look at it, to see what people are doing. But yeah, I haven't been sharing too much lately, which,
I think that's I don't know. It's like, I think if you don't have to be on it, that's probably, I don't know, probably.
I mean, I would love it if social media just all went away, to be honest. I think it's I have more problems with it than things I like about it. But that's my own grumpy middle-age opinions coming out.
Well, we still do want to post on Archinect though. That's the only social media that people need out there.
Okay, yeah, Archinect social media is alive and well, so don't worry about that. It's just my personal stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, is there anything else that you wanted to say or talk about?
Well, I feel like I've dragged this on for probably longer than most of your episodes. So.
Oh no, there isn't. No. Like I said, originally I wanted them to be like 15 minutes long, but now most of them go about an hour now, and and I don't edit. I mean, I could write if I wanted to get into the whole editing thing, but I mean, how, because you have your podcast. Do you guys edit or not?
We do. Yeah, we have an editor. I mean, originally when I started the podcast, I was thinking like, oh yeah, I'll edit it. But then, I opened up GarageBand with the first test episode, and I was like, I'm not going to become an editor right now at this point in my life. So yeah, we hand that off to our editor in Europe. So it's kind of a nice little turnaround. But we have not done a podcast in a while. We've been on hiatus for a little while with podcast, but we're hoping to get that back up and running soon.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I look forward to it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna post yours and then I don't know, several others, because some people have said oh, are you gonna do it? I mean, it's not am I doing this? Is this gonna make any difference? Right. Whether you do your podcast or not. And it just kind of seems like there's so many podcasts in the market now, and so but I've had several people say that they actually enjoy it, so I guess I should still.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are a lot of podcasts, but because of that, that the people that are listening to it are listening to it because there are a lot out there, but that's the one that they want to listen to. So I think there's enough diversity of interests and people for there to be an infinite number of outlets and, publications and podcasts and everything for people to connect with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Michelle.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Well, next time you're in LA, we'll have to meet up for a drink.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah,
You know.
yeah.